Okay, guys. So I waited to do this video until I got all of the information, until I heard directly from Tulsi, which I did, until I watched the video of the event. I just wanted to make sure that all of my due diligence was done before I said too much. So just for some background, in case you've totally missed it and you don't know what is going on, there was a Fox Business News article that came out saying Biden, Buttigieg, Gabbard hit Wall Street for money despite class warfare rhetoric. And when this came out, to me, this kind of stuff isn't new. So I usually gloss over this stuff and then go, oh, yeah, okay. It's just another smear article about Tulsi Gabbard. Those of us who support her are so used to this. We're so used to seeing so much negative stuff come out. Most of it is absolutely untrue, or they've twisted things, or they've left information out. I mean, it's pretty bad. So most of us who support her are always kind of ready to put on our battle armor. And here we go. We got to counter these ridiculous narratives once again. So, and I think rightfully so. I mean, she's just been smeared, and not just by mainstream media, but by progressive channels as well. I mean, it's been pretty bad. Now, let's just read what this article says so that you know what we're talking about here. Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard couldn't be more emphatic. Her fledgling campaign, she told Fox News Channel on Friday, is about putting the interests and well-being of the American people first and foremost, ahead of partisan interests, ahead of corporate interests. She says she won't accept PAC or lobbyist money and that her movement is 100% people-powered. No one doubts the Iraq War veteran and current Hawaii congressman's sincerity in fashioning a campaign directed at working-class Americans. But what she left out is that privately, some of the most important people powering her presidential effort come not just from Main Street, but also from Wall Street. Dun, dun, dun. One of the targets of the party's populist ire following the 2008 financial crisis, Fox Business has learned. In recent weeks, Gabbard has been meeting with financial types to raise money for her campaign and has scheduled a fundraiser sponsored by Wall Street executives to take place the first week in June, according to an invitation reviewed by Fox Business. Okay, so when I see things like this, my first thought is always, is this true? So I never start off thinking right away that something isn't true. And I also don't start off right away thinking that something is true. I'm always kind of like, okay, is this true? We have to go through this. So I have to admit that I kind of came to the party late on this, which, as you've noticed, I haven't been posting as many videos lately. I kind of hit a wall. I sort of burned out a little bit. I'm trying to catch my second wind. So I came to the party late on this whole entire thing. And apparently other channels had already covered this, some saying that they debunked it and others were saying that it was true. And I saw this article and I just sort of filed it away. And, I kind of put it in the look more into this category. It's probably nothing. And I didn't think more of it right away. Then I woke up and literally, I woke up one morning out of bed, wiped my eyes, checked my phone, and I ended up getting all of these emails and messages from very concerned Gabbard supporters. Messages like this. Let me read you one of the messages. Kim, what is this news about Tulsi meeting with bankers? My heart is breaking if this is true. I hope you can dig into this. What is her motive? Money? Okay, so there were multiple messages like this from Gabbard supporters, and that actually made me perk up, because normally when there's a smear press thing about Tulsi, most Tulsi supporters pretty much right away know that it's garbage and toss it out. And so really, when those smear articles come out, the damage isn't done with the Tulsi supporters. The damage is done with people that haven't made up their mind. It's people that maybe they haven't heard of her, or they're just getting their first impression. And when the first impression is a negative smear, it's not so good. That's really where the damage comes in when we're talking about these other smear articles that happen, or when people, say things that are just absolutely not true. But this was different. And it was because actual Tulsi supporters, major big time Tulsi fans. And I mean, the people that I got messages from are huge Tulsi fans. She is their number one. And when they were feeling concerned and upset, that's when I perked up and said, okay, now I really do need to look more into this. I can't just ignore this one. In recent weeks, I was ignoring quite a few of them. There were some articles that were definitely guilt by association. They were bringing up other people and saying, well, they believe this, and so she must too. And I thought that was kind of crazy. And So with this one, though, because it was actual Tulsi fans that were very concerned, I went into full-on investigative mode. And I'm going to say, first off, that it is not a secret, I don't think, that Tulsi is my favorite candidate. I don't know if I've maybe publicly said that on this channel, but I think people have all assumed. And that is true. And she is my favorite candidate. I say that in the present tense. So I think she has a lot of integrity, a lot of honor, and I think she has a lot of courage. And that is what I love about her. I think that she's always honest, she's always truthful, and she's always going to fight, even if it costs her. That's what I like. I mean, and not only politically, but with her own actual life. I mean, she is in the military. She's a major in the military, and she's willing to actually risk her real, actual physical life. So this is somebody I've got a lot of respect for, and I go into this biased. I'm going to let you know. So that being said, I mean, even understanding my own bias, my method was to first watch what some of the other channels were saying, both who were saying that it was false and also from channels who said that it wasn't false. And apparently there was some confusion. Some investigated but only found 2 events that were being held in New York City. So when they read this Fox Business article and then they kind of went and looked, they found 2 events. One of the events was a public meet and greet for supporters, and the other one was an event held it was by a prominent surgeon in New York City at his penthouse. And neither of these events had anything to do with Wall Street or bankers. The penthouse one sounds pretty posh, and I'm sure it was, but Tulsi supporters could RSVP to that event from what I understand. So, I'm sure space was limited, and I'm sure that you couldn't just get in, anybody could show up to this penthouse, but I do believe that it was available for the average supporter. So some initially came out and said that the article was bullshit because these 2 events were not at all connected to Wall Street. But that is not the event that the article was talking about. There was a 3rd event, and that's the event that is in question. I know that the article also mentions the campaign courting Wall Street in the past several weeks. They kind of said that before they talk about this event, and I don't know what they're referring to. And if they can't source it, then it's not worth anything. Okay, so I ignored that line because I don't see any sourcing of that. I couldn't find any information on that. And unless they could cite that, it should absolutely be ignored. But before I actually had a chance to look into the actual event, Tulsi did tweet a statement about it. And I went to Twitter and I read it. And this is what she said. She said, "I'm happy to be in New York City holding 3 events this week. 1, a meet and greet hosted by our campaign on Saturday at 11 a.m. June 8th, Project Farmhouse, 76 East 13th Street. 2, a fundraiser at Dr. Raj Biyani's home, a well-known Brooklyn-based surgeon," which, by the way, there's controversy about that particular one, not about Wall Street or anything, and I can address that later because that is a smear. And 3, a breakfast conversation. And 3, a breakfast conversation hosted by Omid Malik. As is clear from the invitations sent out, I do not accept money from PACs or lobbyists. Some in media are apparently upset by the fact that there are business people in New York City who are against warmongers and support my message of ending regime change wars, the new Cold War, and nuclear arms race. By the way, I would love to have millionaires and billionaires join this campaign and use their money for good, not evil. Maybe that's what they're upset about. Okay, so now let's look into the event. The event was sponsored by Farvahar Partners, which is a boutique bank. The founder of the bank is Omid Malik. He used to be a Bank of America top executive, but he left amidst some turmoil. I don't know, it was kind of like a Me Too thing, I think. Those records are sealed. And he apparently left for an 8-figure sum, which is a lot of money. So over $10 million, anywhere from $10 to $99 million. Okay. He walked away from Bank of America, or he got ousted and sued and all that, and started this boutique bank. The event was held at the Core Club, which is a posh, private, 4-members-only club in New York City that costs $50,000 to join this club and $15,000 annually. So it's elite. This is an elite club. There is no question about that. The attendees of the event, it is unclear who they were. I called the Core Club myself, And they said that it was an event for members and for guests of the host. So if Omid Malik invited them and they were on a guest list, then they could show up. Or if they were members of the core club, they were open and welcome to show up to this event. It was posted on their website for their members, so any member could go, or guests of Malik. The invite didn't give much more information about the situation. They said that it was a breakfast and conversation with Tulsi Gabbard. There is clearly an indicator that Malik was fundraising for Tulsi, because there was a special link that was created for people specifically to donate. You can see here it is tulsi.co/Malik. So this was an event that was intended to gain support for Tulsi and to potentially fundraise money for her campaign. So from there, I had a lot of questions. Was there a fee per plate? Was it an actual fundraiser in that way? What was the amount raised and from who? Who were the guests? Were they bankers? I mean, I understand that Malik is no longer with Bank of America, but I'm sure he still has friends in the banking industry. It's not like they all shunned him. Or were they concerned Iranian Americans? I mean, from what I can gather, also Omid Malik is of Iranian descent, and it's very possible that the attendees were other Iranian Americans concerned over imminent war, and that would make sense. These are the questions I have. Was it filmed? Will we see what was said? Those were the questions that I had lots of questions. So I reached out to the campaign and I reached out to Tulsi directly. And I heard back from her. And here's what she said. So this was, in full disclosure, 2 days ago. So I've sat on this for a few days. So I asked her about whether or not this was a fundraiser and, some of the questions, not all of these questions, but some of these questions. And her response to me was, it was not a fundraiser. There were no contributions or cover charges to attend. No contributions were received at the event. As in my town halls, people were asked to join my campaign and contribute to spreading my message. It was filmed and footage will be released. Omid organized the event, not the campaign. Attendees were not members of the club. They were guests and friends of the organizer. Okay. So since that message, which was 2 days ago, she has posted the video of her speaking at the event, and you can watch it. It was a great speech. So that answered some of the questions. There was no fee. It was not a fundraiser. So there wasn't like, oh, you have to pay for per plate and get in there, and that's how this was done. It wasn't that sort of thing. Now, we do know that Omid is fundraising for her because of that special link. So we know that there is some, but the event itself was not a fundraiser. There was no money collected by the campaign at this event. Omid is clearly a supporter of Tulsi. He must really like her a lot. He's wanting to put this event on for her. He's wanting to fundraise for her. Okay. Lots of other people do that as well. Now, in the video that Tulsi posted, nothing was alarming. Her message was what it always is. She didn't stray. It's not like she had a public and a private position. Everything was on the up and up. But we still don't know who attended the event. I don't know if it was bankers or if it was Iranian Americans. I don't know what the net worth of the average individual was at this event. These are questions I don't know. I don't know how much money Omid Malik was able to fundraise for Tulsi. He's probably maybe still fundraising for her. I don't know. These are questions that I don't know. I don't know the answer to these. That will eventually come out because the campaign has to disclose who donated to the campaign. So that will come out eventually. Now, those are the facts. Those are the facts of what is this situation. Now I'm going to tell you how I feel about those facts. We're at war with the elites and the oligarchs who have bought our nation. They have bought it right from underneath us. They've paid off our politicians. They've bought off our media. They've bought off entire industries. And now we're in the fight of our lives. And that is the fundamental crux of the progressive movement. Now, not all rich people are bad. Okay, there are some who are fighting right alongside us. For example, Nick Hanauer, the Amazon billionaire, for example. But I think that it would be tough to find a big enough group of rich people to stick in a room together who happen to be wanting to fight for the little guy. I don't think that there's that many of them. I do think that there are a lot of wealthy people who are fighting for the little guy, who do want to see change, who don't want the pitchforks coming after them, like Nick Hanauer says. But I think it would be hard to find a bunch of them to stick them in a room at the same time. I am supporting fighters for the people. I want to elect only politicians who are really going for it for the little guy. And for example, I've been watching AOC like a hawk because she's got all this newfound fame. And because of that, she's had a lot of rich and famous people wanting to hobnob with her. And she's even gotten invites like Chrissy Teigen and John Legend. They invited her to their house to watch the Oscars. And when I heard about that, I thought, wow, okay, if she goes to Chrissy Teigen's house and John Legend, which, look, I love them. I follow them on Instagram. I think Chrissy and John are great. But if she does that, a little bit of me is going to die on the inside. Because, look, would she have been fundraising from them? No. Are John and Chrissy bought off? Are they oligarchs that have bought off our government? No. But I don't want to see a fighter for the people hobnobbing with the rich and the famous. It's just not what I want to see. Same with Bernie Sanders. If Nick Hanauer, for example, decided to hold an event that was just for his wealthy friends at a big fancy country club, and Bernie went there hoping that he would potentially sway some of them over to his side and maybe even raise money for his campaign, I would probably go cross-eyed about that a little bit. That would feel like, you're just crossing over to the dark side. And as I mentioned, I have a bias for Tulsi. So I know that because of this bias that I might give her a pass when I wouldn't be so generous with some other people. And when I thought about this exact event of this fundraiser at this posh New York City elite club that you and I cannot afford, going there to talk to, I don't know who, a bunch of rich people, I don't know. And I thought about that event and I stuck Bernie Sanders there. And the tweets that Tulsi sent out saying that she wanted to raise from millionaires and billionaires. And I just inserted Bernie, or I inserted Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into those. And I wasn't okay with it. So I can't be okay with it for Tulsi either. Now, does this mean that she's no longer, she doesn't have my support? Does it mean that she's not a progressive? No, not at all. There are things that Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, have done that I absolutely have publicly come out after them for. For example, Bernie Sanders with his foreign policy needs some serious work. Now, I support Bernie Sanders and really like the guy. He's my, number 2 on my list. Really like him. But, with his foreign policy, sometimes I think that guy's got a major blind spot. And for example, when he tweeted out about the humanitarian trucks, when he was kind of blaming it on Maduro, I went after him on Twitter. Same thing with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I did a video. It was the Sri Lankan bombing attacks. I was upset that she had tweeted 11, I think it was either 11 or 14 tweets about the New Zealand mosque attack. But the Sri Lanka Christian bombings, she didn't say anything. And in fact, the only thing she tweeted that day was about her Netflix movie. And I was like, what the hell? Okay. So I've publicly gone after them. And that doesn't mean that they don't have my support. And it doesn't mean that they're no longer progressive. And what this means is that we, the people, need to remember that politicians work for us. We, the people, need to remember that we can support them and champion for them and advocate for them and campaign for them and hope that they win and see them through. But we still need to hold their feet to the fire when they cross the line. We have to be able to let them know where that line is and to say, look, I didn't like that. I didn't like that choice. I didn't like that vote. I didn't like that decision. Whatever it is, we have to be able to say to them, that's my boundary. Don't like it. I still support you. I don't like that. Now, if I wanted to support somebody 100%, I would run for office. I would support myself 100%. If I wanted to agree with somebody 100% of the time, then I would go out there and put myself on the line and run for office, but I'm not. So I understand that all of the politicians out there, there's not a single one, not even my favorite, who I'm going to agree with their decisions 100% of the time. That's the way it goes. Now, some people have said that, they kind of look at this whole thing and they say, well, how is this different from those who criticize her for meeting with Assad? Tulsi's willing to meet with anyone, and this is just another one of those meetings. I think that is absurd. That's absurd to say, and anyone who has any intellectual honesty can and should be able to tell the difference between going and meeting with somebody for diplomacy reasons, you're wanting to prevent war, it's peacekeeping, versus trying to win people over and potentially fundraise from them. Tulsi wasn't looking for Assad's endorsement, nor was she looking for his money. That's very, very different. I do like that she is willing to meet with people on all sides of the aisle. I applaud that. I encourage that. I think more leaders should be doing that. But when it comes to fundraising for a campaign, I'm not really encouraging you to go get money from anybody. I'm not. That's just, okay? I want you to go and meet with leaders from all around the world. I think you should meet with everybody in order to continue to look for peace. I want you to reach across the aisle, meet with Republicans, see their point of view. Don't necessarily bargain with them and barter with them. Don't necessarily try to compromise. Some things you just can't compromise on. But I think you should have those meetings. I think you should be willing to sit down with anybody and hear anybody out. What I don't want to see is trying to cultivate a partnership in some way. And when somebody's looking to support or fundraise, then there's a partnership there. So some have also said, how is this any different from her appearing at SALT, which is the big conference for bankers and hedge fund guys that Scaramucci puts on in Las Vegas. And it's a little bit different because one was a conference and it wasn't specifically for her. She was just asked to speak at a conference. And this one was an event put on specifically for her that had some, an element of fundraising. Maybe it wasn't itself a fundraiser, but had an element of fundraising to it. So, but, I wasn't really all that comfortable with her appearing at SALT either. I let it go, but I really would like politicians that I support to stay away from the banks, to stay away from the military-industrial complex, to stay away from big oil companies. Could you imagine the field day we would have if Bernie Sanders went to like a defense contractor convention and he sat there and he's like, yeah, so I'm sitting down with Boeing and Lockheed Martin, all these defense contractor guys, but I'm here to and I'm not talking about any of that. I'm here just for my message of raise the minimum wage and Medicare for all. Maybe his message would stay on point. Maybe nothing would change about what he has to say. But I think it would all feel a little bit like he was a bit willing to do a deal with the devil. It would feel maybe like he just got a little bit too close. It would make us all uncomfortable, even if nothing about his message changed at all. But remember, Bernie's not the one going around saying regime change war, right? Let's end these wars. Let's end these wars. He's not the person saying that. So if he went to a defense convention and he just did his normal, we got to have Medicare for all and raise minimum wages and end bigotry and racism, and doesn't say anything about defense because he doesn't really ever put that in his messages, nothing would be any different, but it would still make us all uncomfortable. Okay. So, we, the voters, don't even want the appearance of you cheating on us. Whether it be with the rich, the famous, the banks, the oil, the military industrial complex, even if you are not cheating at all, okay, and there's nothing nefarious going on, there's nothing seedy, there's nothing sinister, there's no backroom deals, there's no public or private positions, we still just don't even want the appearance of it. We don't even want it to look like you might be glancing over and checking them out when they walk by. We don't even want the appearance of it. And again, this is different than reaching across the aisle and trying to work with the other side. It is different from meeting with world leaders in an effort to find peace. It's different because we are losing this economic war and we are literally hanging by a thread. And we just cannot, we don't want a single compromise. We can't have a single compromise on any of these issues. We just can't afford it. We are looking, quite frankly, we're at war. This isn't, let's stop a war. We're pretty much at war with the oligarchs and those who have bought off our government. We're trying to win our government back to make it for the people. And quite frankly, we want to destroy what has happened to our government. We want that element gone. We want the oligarchs, the money in politics, all of this influence. We want that gone. We want to destroy it. We don't want to compromise with it. We want it gone. It can't be. If we want to be a democracy, if we want really to have decisions that are made for the people, we can't have any of that in our government. So I would prefer it if the politicians that I support stay far, far away from even the appearance of cheating on us with the rich, the powerful, the oligarchs, and even the famous, because it's exclusionary and it separates us by class, the haves and the have-nots. And that's what we're fighting against. So I don't want even an appearance of it. And I don't think Tulsi is cheating on us. I don't think Tulsi's bought off, nor do I think that she can be swayed. That's why I support her so much, because I think she's a woman of integrity. I think she has a lot of honor, and I think she has a lot of courage. And I don't think she's any of those things. She has a lot of integrity, a lot of courage, all of these things, and I trust her, okay? I just didn't like this choice. But again, I don't like all the choices of other politicians either, and I call them out on it, and that's okay. We've got to be able to say, didn't like it, still love you, you're great, but, this one I wasn't really thrilled on. Now, I want to reiterate that Tulsi Gabbard has absolutely the best shot at beating Donald Trump. And she does get smeared a lot. And people do have really, really wrong ideas about what she thinks and what she's done. And they just, they just don't understand her. And I think she has the most diverse support, and she would get the vote blue no matter who crowd. And her vision for America is absolutely solid. It is for the people. And most importantly, she wouldn't march us into ridiculous wars that cost lives. She has my full support. I can't stress that enough.